सेव किया था ना?
मैं सिर्फ इसलिए गया था क्योंकि उसने मुझे कॉल किया, that's it. But listen तो.
Save it for someone else.
जिंदगी में सेव करना जरूरी है, मगर जब बात पैसों की हो, सिर्फ सेविंग से काम नहीं चलेगा। इक्विटी म्यूचुअल फंड्स में इन्वेस्ट कीजिए और अपने सेविंग्स को आगे बढ़ने का मौका दीजिए।
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.
Now, can I start this by asking you if you know what is Mahua? Not Mahua Moitra, the Member of Parliament. In which case, I would not have said, first of all, what is Mahua? I would have said, do you know who is Mahua? And second, I would not insult your intelligence or underestimate your intelligence by asking you if you know who Mahua Moitra is. The whole country knows who Mahua Moitra is. She is the embattled Lok Sabha member from Trinamool Congress. So we are not talking about Mahua Moitra, not that Mahua. We are talking about Mahua the tree. The reason we are talking about Mahua the tree, its botanical name is Maduka longifloria. The reason we are talking about this is that to understand what exactly has happened with Dhiraj Sahu, remember the Congress MP on whose many premises Income Tax Department in these multiple raids has recovered at least 350 crore, 51 crore rupees. So much cash that so many counting machines broke down. You've seen all this play out on your TV channels. To understand what's happened there, to understand how his economics works or might have worked, to understand also why this gives him and how this gives him his political clout, you have to understand this tree, Mahua or Maduka longifolia. More importantly, you have to understand the flower of the tree. So see a picture of the tree and see also a picture of the flower. Mahua is a very autonomously growing tree. It's found wild in these zones. It also yields lots of things. So almost every part of a Mahua tree can be used. Mahua gives you seeds which are described as oleaginous. Oleaginous means what yields oil. So these seeds yield oil. Again, the botanical name of the family that the tree belongs to is Sapotaceae. Sapotaceae, I suspect, in fact, I'm quite sure, it comes from saponification. Saponification is the process when you rub soap on something, it creates foam. Basically, the soaping process, that's called saponification. That is the chemical name for the soaping process. That's why the family that this tree comes from is called Sapotaceae. The oil from the seeds is used to make soaps, detergents, as you would expect. It is also used as a fuel oil, particularly by tribals living in these zones. Also, it's seed cakes. After all, once the oil is taken out, you are left with a lot of husk from the seed. That is then converted into cakes that used as a fertilizer. And you want to see more uses for this tree. So a particular moth called Antheria paphia, P-A-P-H-I-A, Antheria paphia, that feeds on the flower of this tree. And that moth is the one that produces what you know as tussar silk. All of us are familiar with this fine Indian original native silk called tussar silk. So that also depends on Mahua growing in the wild in these zones. Where does Mahua grow? Mahua is a tree which is found all across central, eastern India, also parts of southern India, particularly on the eastern side. Generally, you would say, if you take out the northeast, because northeast also has tribal populations in many states, in the rest of the country, next to the Hindi heartland, between the Hindi heartland and the southeastern regions, the entire heartland of Indian tribes. I would call it the Indian tribal heartland. Remember, India has 8% of its population that is classified as scheduled tribe. That makes it almost 11-12 crore people, right? That is a larger tribal population than any place in the world. A bulk of that population lives in this area, in sort of east central areas. So you can see the map of India. You have Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh, Telangana, Andhra Pradesh, in between the large tribal territory of Odisha, not along the coast, but Odisha inland, and also parts of West Bengal. And then it goes on to some of the abutting states. For example, parts of Madhya Pradesh have tribal population. Parts of Bihar also have tribal population. So this is the east central tribal heartland of India. And the Mahua tree is critical to this tribal heartland. How does this give us a window or an insight into Dhiraj Sahu's business? Now, Mahua is used to make country liquor. It is not Indian-made foreign liquor as it's called. It's not like what used to be Solar Number One, Officer's Choice, not like that. I'm sorry to be mentioning some brand names, but presume that these are brand names of mineral waters going by the same brands. If you see commercials in your TV, I should not be talking about liquor brands. These are, however, country-made liquors. These are not Indian-made foreign liquor, and certainly these are not like imported liquors. These are, in fact, in many cases, these liquors are not even distilled. In Odisha, in the coastal area, the tribals may distill this, but in inland districts, they don't distill this. It's too expensive to distill this. How exactly then is this liquor produced? So Mahua flowers are collected by the poorest of tribals. It's like a daily pursuit. A lot of our tribals, they are very poor people. A lot of our tribals make their living a very modest, a very humble, very minimal living by collecting produce from the forest. That's why it is said that they have the biggest stake in the forest. So they go and collect these flowers. You can see the picture of these flowers. Flowers are sizable. They are sort of succulent. If you squeeze them, something will come out of them, like a sap will come out of them. And if you feel it, which I have done, if you feel it, you might feel that it's a little bit sticky. That's because it's filled with natural sugar of its own. These flowers are then bought by liquor manufacturers, by country liquor manufacturers by the quintal. These flowers can be brought by tribals to the local mandi. They can also be sourced through agents. And you can understand if there is so much poverty and such disorganized business, you can see that somebody who's in the liquor business could be running his own groups of people, collecting these tribals who will go and pick up this flower and pay them some money, maybe 30 rupees a day, 40 rupees a day, maybe these days 100 rupees a day, 150 rupees a day, or maybe for some people it will be reckoned as a daily wage. For some people it will be reckoned as per kilo payout. So this flower is then collected and this flower is then thrown into a pond. It is thrown into a pond. The pond is being recycled. New flowers are thrown in the same pond where earlier flowers were sitting. It's like your local halwai or your handcart chaatwala who's making samosas. He takes out one lot of samosas or one lot of kachoris or one lot of puris from one kadhai and then puts another one while the same oil keeps boiling. So something like that is done in this case also. So all these flowers by the tens of quintals, they are brought in and thrown into these ponds, these fermentation ponds. There in the hot season, it takes about 5 days for them to start yielding yeast. Why is it useful to use water or residue from the earlier lot of flowers that was taken out? Because there is already plenty of yeast sitting there and yeast is needed for fermentation. So these flowers then start releasing their sugar, which then begins to ferment and rises to the top. This fermented sugar, the process of fermentation of sugar, as we know, produces alcohol. Now, in most of the businesses that the Sahu family was running, this was not distilled. In some cases, it is distilled. Madhya Pradesh government, in fact, I will share with you a link from a story in Condé Nast Traveler that tells us that Madhya Pradesh government actually has declared Mahua liquor to be a heritage liquor of India. They've also produced a brand from it called Mond, M-O-N-D, and this article also tells you where you can buy it. Our Bhopal correspondent Iram Siddiqui had actually done a story on Mond, of which also I'm sharing a link with you. You will see the screenshot on your screens. Remember, however, that Mond is produced after distillation. So some more input has gone into that. Also, it's come out of a more proper factory. In this case, because it's coming straight from the pond, so to say, you don't require such an elaborate factory or a plant. So the Sahus have a whole bunch of these. Of the 64 such plants, small plants, or what is called as moth bhattis. Moth bhattis, if you're making bricks on it, you can call it a brick kiln, like a kiln, or you can just call it a kitchen, right? But that is where this stuff is brewing and this stuff is then boiled. This stuff is boiled and then it's not filled into bottles, it's filled into poly packs. These polypacks, see one of the pictures of one of these polypacks. These polypacks, each one contains 180 ml each. 180 ml. That's a little less than your normal glass of water, 180 ml. This 180 ml costs about 15 rupees to produce, but sells in the market for about 30 to 35 rupees. Everything, however, in this entire chain is done in cash. That means the tribal who collects the flowers and paid in cash, the middleman who gets the flowers to the liquor maker is also paid in cash. The liquor maker paid his employees or his labor. Our reporter Mayank Kumar, who had gone traveling through Bolangir district of Odisha, following the story, and I'm taking a lot of my gyan from his story, and I've also debriefed him. Even people who work in these small plants, as I told you, these are not huge plants. So each such plant with 50 workers and each of the 12-hour shifts can produce 10,000 pouches of this country-made liquor a day. Now, you can see that the profit on this is a straightforward 100-something%, because if it's costing you 15 rupees, and that also might be a generous estimate. Maybe it will cost you less because there is a little twist there that I'm coming to. Even then, it's a very profitable business. Again, if you're selling a pouch like this to a tribal, because this is something which is based on produce of tribal areas and tree growing naturally in tribal areas, it's collected by poorest tribals. It is sold there itself. It's then brewed in these primitive ponds which cost nothing, and then is boiled in these bhattis or furnaces. Essentially, lards are poured in large size kadhais and let it boil for some time and then packed. So I don't know how much cost it really has, but the profit is very high. Now, again, as these are sold, this will also be sold in cash, because I don't see any tribal, maybe the odd one does it, but I don't see any tribal in those areas that be paying you by UPI, by Google Pay or something like that, right? The tribal will get his or her day's wages or income and go and buy this stuff. That's why the whole chain works on cash. There is one part of the business, however, that does not run on cash. And that is the part where the interface with the government comes in. Now, you might think that liquor business is heavily regulated and controlled by the government everywhere. That's why you have liquor barons in Punjab, Haryana, Uttar Pradesh. Those are the ones we know in the neighborhood of Delhi. And these liquor barons that become hoteliers, they become, in some cases, they launch airlines, they do all kinds of things. They build shopping malls, big shopping malls, often named after themselves or their companies. And more often than not, become politicians and Rajya Sabha members. Nothing very different has happened in this case. That's how Dhiraj Sahu has also become a Rajya Sabha member. So you might think that because of the experience that we have of all these states, government controls liquor trade very tightly. So government auctions liquor vends, then also sets limits to how much liquor can be sold at what price. You are seeing all of that's going on with the Delhi liquor policy, for example. Manish Sisodia, Sanjay Singh, other people are in jail. This case is going on. All of it tells you, right or wrong, it tells you that liquor business is very heavily overseen and controlled by the government. Not in this case. Why not in this case? Because it is, after all, a tribal, rural, native product at a very small scale. So what does the government do in this case? Government says, all right, you go and collect these flowers, you buy these flowers, you pay me a license fee. That license fee is about 3 to 8 lakh rupees for a license. That license doesn't say how much you can produce. That is one of the flaws in the scheme, as it now turns out, and that's what some of the former civil servants have told Mayank also. So once you get this license, now in these parts, 3 to 8 lakhs is a lot of money. So if somebody can go and buy 10 licenses like that in various districts or 20 licenses, it's unlikely that a local tribal who might want to make some mahua by himself, because his liquor is called mahua, who may want to make some mahua by itself, he gets priced out of the market. So once you have the license, then you can start buying your flower. Once again, when you buy the flower, chances are it's all done in cash. So the price of flower, depending on the season and supply, etc., would be rupees 2,000 to 3,000 per quintal. And once you buy it, on top of it, this is where again you get into the structured government system. You can't do it by cash. Again, on top of it, you have to pay excise to the government. So government comes in at two stages. One, for you to get a basic license. I have the license, you have the license, Shekhar Gupta, to possess a gun. Once I have that license, I go and buy a gun. For buying that gun, I pay the seller of the gun. But then to have that gun, because I bought that gun, based on the price that I paid for that gun, I will then pay the government a tax, which is what the liquor maker does in this case. So first, a license for 3 to 8 lakh rupees. Second, he or they buy these flowers, these Mahua flowers at 2 to 3,000 rupees a quintal, and then they pay an excise to the government of 1450 rupees, 1450 a quintal. Take yourself, sort of mentally transport yourself to the fastnesses, or the wild fastnesses of East Central India with so much poverty, all these tribal lands, so little administration. And you can imagine that a lot of this, who's going to be there to correctly estimate each time how many quintals have you bought, how many pouches have you produced from it, how many have you sold. In any case, all of that business will be in cash. So that is where Dhiraj Sahu and his family's cash has come from. Now, what happens? Suppose I pay money to the government to get a license. I don't get that much Mahua. Suppose it's priced out of the market. Then government also gives you a minimum guarantee. That means, for example, for each 1,000 rupees that you paid as license fees, the government makes available to you or promises to make available to you at least 0.786. How they came at that number, I don't know. 0.786 quintal of Mahua flowers. But then it puts no limit to how much more you can buy. And that's why this becomes a completely unregulated market, which is impossible to estimate. The current estimate that we have on the authority, it's an estimation on the authority of Sudarshan Nayak, who is a former IAS officer, who between 2006 and 2012 was Excise Commissioner of Odisha. He has said to Mayank Kumar in that story, he said that this business has three problems. One, there is concentration of power with one licensee or maybe one or two licensees. So it's not widespread enough. Number two, there is no transparent way of keeping an eye or keeping an estimate of how much is being manufactured. And number three, in the law and the regulations, there is no maximum amount fixed as to how much a person can or a company can produce. Now, how powerful the Sahus are, the company is called Baldeo Sahu and Sons. That was the father of Dhiraj Sahu. That company was set up in 1954, and he was already quite a sizable local presence. In fact, the local legend has it that he had once taken, during still in British days or maybe towards the end of the British days, he had taken Dr. Rajendra Prasad, who was a sizable local leader and later became President of India, the first President of India. He had taken him on his bike to Daltonganj. And his bike at that point was not some chota-mota bike. It was a BSA. So those legends float there. This is a family of some consequence. And like all liquor barons, these ones also, the Sahus also have many other businesses, from hotels to hospitals. So maybe tomorrow, if they are described on Wikipedia or maybe one of the business channels, they'll be called from country liquor to hospitality giant, right? Something like that. So this company was set up in 1954. Now, if you look at the size of this company now, the operation of the 64 such plants or moth bhattis that these are called, making this Mahua country liquor, 46 are owned by this Sahu family. So that gives you a story of the domination of the Sahu family. And Sahu family is not even from Odisha. They are from Lohardaga in Jharkhand. That's also a tribal area, about 70 kilometers from Ranchi. So they control the strait, not just in Odisha, but they also have a big footprint in adjoining tribal zones. Again, see the map of this region on your screens. You see Odisha, that is the heart of the story, because that's where the raids have taken place. Now, to the northeast of Odisha, West Bengal, those are tribal districts of West Bengal. To the northwest of Odisha, there is Jharkhand, again tribal districts of Jharkhand. And to the west is the entire tribal expanse of Chhattisgarh. Then southeast is Andhra Pradesh and southwest is Telangana. Again, these are the tribal districts of these states. So this is really, that's the reason we call it the tribal heartland of India. And there, the favorite drink everywhere is country-made liquor. Country liquor is made from many things, but Mahua is among the most favorite things. That's why I find the metaphor of Mahua in so much about folk music and folklore. So I thought you've seen all those pictures of the money coming out of all kinds of places, the struggle that the raiding parties had in counting that money. We watched it all voyeuristically. We've also seen the defense from Mr. Sahu himself, Dhiraj Sahu, who has said this belongs to my various companies. He's not denied that it's his company's money, but he claims he'll account for it. But that besides the point. You've seen all that money. So I was wondering, and I'm sure many of you are wondering also, where has this money come from? This money has not come from running licensed vends of liquor manufactured in distillery on the basis of government auctions and government licenses. This is really a cottage industry which is run at the most basic, the most fundamental level of our tribal economics. And since we are talking about tribal way of life and country liquor that the tribals drink and how important it is for them. So once again, my reminder, I've told you this story before, but once again, my reminder to you, the reason nationwide prohibition was not enforced in India in our constitution is because of one tribal there. That was Jaipal Singh Munda. Brilliant man. He was also the captain of the Indian hockey team that won the first gold medal, and a man of many other talents. So Jaipal Singh Munda was a member of the Constituent Assembly, and he heard all this clamor that this is a country which is being inherited from Gandhi. Gandhi created the New India. So New India must constitutionally ban liquor consumption. And he said, you can't do it because I am a tribal. For us tribals, it's a way of life. You can't take away our way of life. So if you don't have enforced pan-national prohibition, constitutionally mandated, it's thanks to Jaipal Singh Munda, a tribal generally from this region, in his case from Jharkhand. And also, he's the one who saved us not just from compulsory constitutionally mandated prohibition all over India, also from a wretched life of living with bootleggers and the underground business, liquor business of our own. Because you remember, parts of India which have prohibition actually have the highest amount of liquor consumption. That includes the state of Gujarat, for example. And I can tell you from my tribals in Pakistan, that is never a problem in Pakistan as well. So the other important thing to remember is that with this business, it's done at a very disorganized, local, innocent level. But the fact is that we don't hear of these big, huge tragedies, because whatever it is, the tribals and the local businesses also that make this liquor stay close to the real product. They don't try to mix it up with other spirits and other poisonous things. And once again, when you ban these things, this creates black markets, mafias, because black markets create their own arbitrage. And that is how a lot of things go wrong. In the tribal societies, all of this has been handled at a very innocent level. But maybe the Sahu case now is a reminder that some structure has to be put into this. I will only hope, and this is opinion now, I will only hope that this is not something which is now attacked with a bureaucratic solution of virtue signaling, of creating the perfect world in tribal lands by regulating it too much, because what that will also do is create another system of arbitrage, bribery and exploitation, in this case by local level bureaucracies and inspectors.